I think we could get started. It's just have a few housekeeping things and an introduction before we get started. So Alan is going to be sharing his screen, and so we will take questions as we go. If you would be so kind as to put your hand up if you have a question, and then we can, find a convenient place to add that question in. And I lost my notes. If we do happen to go over the 60 minutes, we can go a bit over the 60 minutes. So we're not like jamming everything in and making it all compacted where it doesn't need to be compacted. So we can get the most information out of Alan that we can. And I will say that, like, I first ran into Alan on TikTok, and I felt like I was like being a stalker, because you know how you get those people that like every TikTok, and I'm like, okay, I need to slow down a bit because he's going to think that I'm weird or something. But the information was just so good that I could not invite Alan to do a Learn Out Loud here at the Salon. So I know that we're going to learn a lot today. I know a lot of us are vibe coding, and there have been a lot of questions about, okay, I've created this app and I'm not quite sure how to ship it, how to distribute it, whatever. Is it safe? Have I covered all the guardrails and everything? So that's a lot of what we're going to learn today, and like how to actually structure your app, like from the beginning rather than waiting until the end. So anyway, I will hand it over to Alan to introduce himself and to start his presentation.
Thank you, Vicki. I really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for having me here. Just a quick disagreement with Vicki about something. We are going to cram things in here. There's no way around it. A short intro about me. I've been in software development for about 4 decades. I started when I was still in high school, coding for a Fortune 500 company in my hometown, and that was pretty exciting. And I've been in some type of technology and development ever since then. People talk about starting in AI in the last couple of years. I started in AI in the 90s. We were doing things called expert systems, machine vision, robotics, embedded controls back in the 90s with what was then called AI. And if you're interested in that, one of my books, AI Fundamentals, does cover some of the history of AI. And there have been several waves in AI, and we're in one of those now. So, but let's get right into it, because there's so much to dive into. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to give you like specifics about how to. Okay, I just did that backwards. 1 second. I've got to share my screen first, and then I can start the presentation. Every app is different. And if I try to cover how to deploy one app, then I'm going to miss so many different things. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to give you some tools and methodologies that you can use to deploy any kind of app to production. And hopefully these will be beneficial to you. Can everybody see my screen? Good. Oh, perfect. And that was the next thing. How many of you have vibe coded an app? How many of you have vibe coded more than one? And last question, how many of you learned something from the first one that you did different in the second one? Yeah, exactly. So to be honest, it's the same thing with developers, right? I mean, when I started developing, I knew very little about it. The things that you learn when you vibe code an app are things that most programmers don't know when they come out of school, okay? I have a master's degree from engineering school. I built a lot of projects in engineering school. I didn't know anything about pushing apps to production when I came out of school. So many of you, you've probably heard, oh, they're just vibe coding. Many of you, if you've done this more than one time, you know more than people coming out of school. So all I'm going to try to do today is to give you some tips on how to talk to the AI in ways that reveal some of the hidden decisions that you don't even know that the AI is making for you. And there's a big reason for that. Let's talk about what we'll cover real quickly. I'm going to talk about why deployment is a problem. We'll just touch on that for a few minutes. I'm going to talk about what hidden decisions are and why these are important. Just a show of hands, how many of you are like later in your vibe coding project, you found out that the AI did something very early that cost you a lot of time later? Anybody see that? Yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How can you find that out before it becomes a problem? And like Vicky said, if you have a question, raise your hand. She's going to watch for me and she's going to stop me. Third thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the methodology that I'm going to tell you about today. Sometimes when you hear words like methodology or framework, you think, oh, this is just conceptual. But what this really is I'm going to show you practical ways that you can use AI to uncover some of these hidden decisions. And then the next part, a live demo, I'm going to show it to you. Okay. I've used, for the first time in my life, I've used Lovable. Very, very good time to do it on Valentine's Day, right? I've used Lovable to create an app, and we're going to look at how to use my methodology to make it more production ready and ready to deploy. And I'm going to show that to you using Claude Code. And then finally, I'm going to just mention briefly how you can use the same methodology from the beginning of your project, not just at a deployment. And then finally, there will be a time for Q&A. So let's get started really quick. By the way, I cannot see a clock. Oh, there it is. I can't see a clock. Never mind. So the big issue is the deployment wall. And everybody runs into this, not just vibe coders, but people who have been coding for decades. We run into this deployment wall. What that means is that we get an app that works on our computer. We're ready to push it into production to have real users, real data, and there are problems with it. But the issue that many vibe coders run into, people that are building with AI, is they don't always know about those silent decisions. Sorry about that. My dog decided it's time to go out. She can wait. As you see, this is the project that I built with Lovable. And I went back and looked, and the AI made 43 silent decisions that I didn't know about. Okay. I told it to create an app. It created an app. The app worked fine. Later, when I get ready to deploy this, those 43 decisions could come back to bite me because I don't know what's there. Okay. So this is what's called the deployment wall. I'm going to skip this just because I want to spend more time in the demo, but this just gives an example, of someone who vibe coded an app. When they put it into production, all of a sudden they found all of these things that didn't work because they didn't know what the AI was doing from the beginning. They didn't know about those decisions. By the way, you're going to hear me say this term all the time, the whole time: decisions. Decisions. And Brandon is on here. Brandon, I was so excited to see that your term for February is signal. Signal is so important when you're working with AI. And when you think about signal, think about slowing down and giving the AI more data that helps it understand what you want to build, how you want to build it, and what you plan to do with it. Okay. So let's talk about hidden decisions. So, if I were to say, hey, build me a task app, that's what I did with Lovable. The AI, I got code from it. It built the app. There were no problems on the surface. It worked. I could create tasks. I could assign those tasks to people on my team. It all worked fine. But what happened later is that when I was ready to productionize this thing, when I was ready to scale it, add users, all of a sudden I ran into that wall because there were things that the AI did early on that I didn't understand that it was doing. Instead, I need to think of the AI more like my analyst. Okay, don't tell it at the beginning, build this app. Ask it for options. Ask it for trade-offs. And I'm going to show this to you coming up. If you can keep two key terms in your mind when you're doing this: decisions that we're talking about right now and options. Okay, you're going to see that in practice in just a few minutes. But decisions and options, if you keep those in mind, you're going to come up with an app at the end that is going to be much more stable, much more reliable, much more practical, and much more much ready for production. So let me stop here because I've been trying to go very fast so I can get to the demo. Any questions from so far? Oh, we have a question. Oh, is that a doorbell? You're not.
Sorry, that was the doorbell.
Okay. So
I have an answer actually. Lovable is 50% off today.
yes,
Brandon
I
just told
heard
me
that.
that. So
Heard that.
now's your chance to try it out.
I wish I'd built my simple app today instead of a couple weeks ago.
Cool.
Okay, so here's an example. So that one simple app that I built, okay, these are the decisions that the AI made for me that I didn't know it was making, okay? You can see that in different areas. I just narrowed it down to 6 areas, and you can see that there were 9 features that are missing because I didn't specifically tell it to put those in. I didn't know to tell it to put those in, and so I was sort of left blind knowing what was being built. These are the things that we want to move away from when we're building with AI. So there were 4 of those decisions that would completely break my product if I put it into production. You can see what those are here. Again, these are things that I would have found right away when I put it into production, but I didn't know about them until then, okay? Like I said, from looking at it in Lovable, it all worked great. Everything looked good. I could assign tasks, I could complete tasks, I could do all this, and it worked fine. But it would not have worked in production. And here are the four of the decisions that the AI made that would have broken it. So now let's talk about the methodology. The 3 points I've got there on the bottom of that slide, that is the key to this methodology. Surfacing decisions, understanding trade-offs, and then making choices. Okay, this is your role. This is your role in product development. When you are building an app, when you're building a product, you need to surface decisions. You need to understand the trade-offs of different options, and then you need to make the choice, even if you don't understand exactly what you're doing, because you need to know what those decisions are later when you're ready to push it into production, when you're ready to expand it by adding features, when you're ready to maintain it or add more users. You need to know what decisions were made early on in the life cycle of your product. Or even if you start right now, let's say you've got a product like I'm going to show here, and you're just wanting to get to be ready for production, you need to understand what decisions you're making right now so that later you can go back and understand why there may be issues with a certain feature or a certain maintainability when you get to that point, okay? So again, surfacing decisions, explore different options, recording those decisions so that you have that. Any questions? Again, I know I'm going fast, but I want you to see it in action instead of hearing me talking. Any questions?
I have one question,
Okay.
and it only just came to mind. So I do like write down decisions and things like that, but is it possible, like within, say, something like Lovable, that you can ask it to give you a list of decisions that you can then copy to a document?
That's a good question, and someone that uses Lovable more may be able to tell you. I don't use Lovable, but you can try the methodology that I'm giving you, and my guess is that since Lovable is producing files and producing code and documentation for you, that it will be able to do this. But that's just a guess.
I'm going to try it while we're on this demo.
Okay. Sten?
Yeah, I try to understand this new way of using AI as AI taking certain roles which are in a normal software projects existing. So I was kind of wondering, all these questions like what are my options and trade-offs, what typical role would give these questions in a normal software development flow?
That's a good question. And so many people that are vibe coding have started hearing the term PRD as a description of what their product is going to be. And these kind of decisions and roles, these kind of decisions typically come between the PRD. So you have a definition of what your product will be at the end. They come between that PRD and the architecture, where you're actually building the architecture of your environment. Or if you want to, if you skip the architecture to documents, it would come between the PRD and implementation, where you actually start building. Thank you, Vicky. where you actually start building the product itself. And guys, like I said, I've been in software for a long time. So if I say a term you don't know, raise your hand and stop me. And Vicky, thanks for helping there. Corey, I'm sorry, Stan, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I always make a PRD. I have a custom GPT for that, and it's actually very good. I've instructed it to do questions, and I could go into a dialogue, and when it feels like it's ready, it will ask me, should we make the PRD now? And then I can, but I would maybe add this layers to it after that. That would be a
Yes. And you asked what role. The role of this, the role would typically be an architect. So somewhere between the PRD would be product strategy in a typical organization. The PRD would be the controlled or owned by the product strategy team, product owner team, and the decision records that we'll talk about in a few minutes, they would be owned by the architect and engineering team.
Yeah, and of course you could have agents for this.
Yes, this works with any, if you have agents, if you use sub-agents in Claude Code, if you use, instructions, skills, or Curo calls them, I can't remember what they call them now. Anyway, this methodology works with any of those. Yeah, Corey?
Thank you.
I'm not using agents at all, but to answer to you, Vicky, what I've started to do is, so if I'm trying to get, in this case, Lovable, to create an element for me, a specific thing that I'm asking it to do, and it's having an issue, I'll often say, no, this is exactly what I want here. No, back up. What I have been doing is I've gone into either GPT or into Gemini or into Claude and say, write code. This is what I want. And I talk back and forth a long time with that. And it's given me the exact code. Recently, I've also gone back into Lovable and I've said, does this make sense? If you have a better idea to get the same thing, tell me what that is. So that I'm asking Lovable directly sometimes to say, okay, if this isn't working, you're still not able to do what I'm trying to do here. Either I'm not explaining it well enough, or you're not understanding it, or you can't do it. If you can, great. If you can't, tell me what we should do in this place.
Good. Sonia?
Yeah. Hi, Alan. I've been in engineering for a decade. And the one thing and I'm new to AI and vibe coding, by the way. So for me, the problem is the reverse. It's a black box and I don't understand it. The reason I've not deployed apps or published them is because I'm always thinking about, and I've also been an SDET engineer. How would you recommend, I don't know if it's already there in the slides, please tell me to wait, but how do I incorporate QA or SDET into it ahead of time as part of the architecture so that I don't have failures like cyber or system level or operating or all the stuff that that I'm talking about? That's what I'm curious.
Right. Yeah. So
you
you have a different problem than most people. Right? You know about the different steps, but then how do you use AI to do that? You could use this same methodology, and you'll see when I get to it in a few minutes. So you'll see when I talk about decisions and decision records. You may have heard of decision records. So maybe one of your decision records is about QA. From the very beginning, say back when you're planning your project, you may have a decision record about QA and how do you implement QA into this product. And so that would be a decision that you would make along with the AI, and then it will become part of your implementation plan and your test plan. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't think I need to cover this slide too much. We've talked about it some, and you'll see it very, very clearly soon. And I know that most of you don't say build me a task management app, but I think you'll still see some difference when I get to the demo about how I surface decisions and then use those decisions to uncover different options and then make the decisions. I don't think there's anything else really. Oh, yeah, that's just okay. So let's talk about the demo now. I'm going to this. Okay. Can everybody see my my IDE?
Got it.
Okay. So for those of you who are familiar, this is just VS Code. Okay. Like I said, I've been coding forever, so I still use VS Code. And I'm using Claude Code. I haven't started Claude Code. I'm almost positive this will work in, well, yeah, so I decided not to cut and paste just so that you could see what was going on, which means you're going to see all my typos. And if you check my file list here, you'll see there's no Claude instructions, like there's no Claude.md, there's no skills, there's no agents. I don't have any Claude commands. This is just straight up Claude code, because I want you to see that what I'm giving to you doesn't depend on the tool, okay? So you could use ChatGPT for this, you could use Gemini for this, you could use Cursor, you could use any of the tools that are available. Again, I'm almost certain that that Lovable would do it, but I haven't used it, so I don't know. So let's just get right into it. Now, since I'm supposed to help you with moving from prototype to production, I've started at this prototype phase. Okay, this is a prototype that I built in Lovable. It works in Lovable, no problem. But now I'm ready to push it into production. So I'm going to begin prompting my AI to help me push this into production. And I'm going to say, I'm ready to deploy. I just like to talk to it, so. So I'm ready to deploy, and I'm asking it to suggest decisions that we should make before deploying into production. And while Claude works, and I'm going to have to tell it to continue in a few minutes. But while Claude works, I'm going to tell you what I did here. So again, I just told it to I told it what we're doing is that we're going to make decisions. Okay, I want it to give me a list of decisions, but more importantly, I'm putting those decisions in something that I'm calling an ADR file. It's just a decision record. It's a certain template that I like to use. If you ask ChatGPT about different kinds of decision records, it'll give you many different options, but ADR is just one. Again, I'm old school, so that's what I'm used to. A few minutes, I'll show you what it creates. What it's doing now is it's looking through my code, and it's trying to decide what decisions should we make. It is not making the decisions for me, okay? It is just coming up with a list of decisions that we need to make together. This is a big differentiator of what I'm suggesting over what we typically see. So if we start with a PRD where we're defining our product, and then we say, okay, let's build it, then the AI is making all of the decisions about how that's built. Instead, if you start with a PRD and you say, look at this PRD, give me a list of decisions that should be made. Now you're the one that's in the driver's seat. You're controlling how it's being built, even if you're not a software developer. And I'll show you that to you in just a few minutes. Any questions while Claude runs? Throw those hands up. Yes, Corey.
So I have an old OS running on my Mac because there's certain programs I don't want to get rid of. So I'm still running Mojave, I think. So I can't have Claude and VS Code talk together. They won't install. I can have Terminal. I can have VS Code. I can't, and I don't pay for Claude. I pay for some other ones. I don't pay for Claude. So can I do all of this then directly in Lovable, as you're saying it right now, or in any of my others?
I think so, but I can't say for sure. I haven't used Lovable to do this, but I believe that you would be able to, because Lovable can access your code in your documents. That's what's needed is to have the AI to be able to access the documents so that it can create these decision records for you.
So I would then need to create a document folder within the file string in Lovable. Because when I look at your string here on your left-hand side, like I see all of that stuff that's in my Lovable file string, whatever it's called, file tree.
Mhm.
So I would just have to tell Lovable, I want you to create a docs/decisions folder that when I tell you this is the information I want to go in there, you will put that in there, and that's good enough?
It should be able to. I can't answer that 100%. I will. Do you use GitHub also?
I have saved it to the GitHub. I'm very new at GitHub. I know that it exists, and I know that they talk to each other, and the stuff that gets done on Lovable gets saved into the GitHub.
Okay. I will tell you that you can use Claude Code in a browser if it doesn't work in your IDE.
Right.
You can also use Claude Code in Cursor or some of the other IDEs, even if you can't get it to work in VS Code. But if you use Claude Code in either the Claude app or the browser, you can connect Claude Code to your GitHub and have it do this work for you, not in an IDE like VS Code. If you don't know, an IDE is something like VS Code, a development environment.
Right. Okay.
And whoever put up the definition for ADR, I appreciate it. An architecture decision document. Yeah. Oh, excuse me, architecture decision record. And Claude is getting near the end of its work. There we go. So let's look at what happened. What Claude did is it created 10 files, starting with 001 to 010. These are the decisions. So the hosting platform selection, environment and secrets management. So you see all of those are listed there, and it tells you what priority each one is. Now notice it has not made any decisions about how to do this yet. What it said is that these are decisions that we need to make. So here are my files. Let's just open the first one. And this is a decision record. It tells me the context. Here are some options to consider. The decision, notice it hasn't been decided yet. And here are some consequences, okay? This is a decision record. This is the key to the methodology that I'm talking about. This is not anything new, okay? This has been around software development for years, but what I'm suggesting, or what I'm trying to help you with, is getting the AI to help you create these decision records so that you can be in control of what's being developed. And I'll show that to you in a few minutes. Any questions so far? Now, let's take this one step further. It's great that the AI came up with all these decisions, but when I look through these, I say, wait a minute, there may be things that's missing. The AI doesn't always know what's important to me. So I'm going to say, yeah, these are good, but I don't see anything in here about scaling users. I want to make sure that as I add users, this keeps working. Anybody ever run into something like that? So what I'm going to do, come down to my terminal again, and I'm just going to tell it, so I'm just going to tell it, hey, this is an important decision. We don't need to skip this. And now here's where it gets, I'm not going to tell it just to add a decision record for scaling users. I'm going to say add it, oops, again, you can see my typos. For that decision and any related decisions. Now let's see what Claude does. Now, all I'm doing is, see, I'm staying in the driver's seat. So I'm telling the AI, hey, this is good stuff, but you missed something, okay? And when I really do that, by the way, I use this methodology at work all the time. So when I do this, obviously there's, I have more history, more experience in this, so I can look through the list and I say, well, you missed these things. Go back and add decision records for these things. Okay, so it knows. And even for like a demo, I built a demo just a couple of weeks ago, and there were like 30 decision records that I ended up with, because these are all important. Now, here's the thing. You don't want to make every decision. If you're making every decision, that means that you're choosing every line of code, and you don't want to do that, okay? So you're going to learn as you build which decisions are important for your app. And every app will have different decisions that are important. But here, you can use AI to help you with that, okay? And you can ask it, for this app, which ones are important? Which one should I focus on? And which one should I let you make all the decisions on? And AI will help you with that. And don't be afraid to say, nope, you're wrong about that. I want to make that decision. And so you choose that. Now, notice what happened. It's now made 3 more ADRs, and it changed another one, ADR 5. Any question up to this point?
Yeah. So you've just said that I can, so what I'm aware of is that I'm not an engineer. I'm an artist, and the decisions are not one that I necessarily have thought of, or maybe I've thought of things that aren't really decisions, but are just more noise that I have, because I have a lot of noise when I make these apps. If I call it noise, just they could be done in 10 minutes. Instead, they take 4 weeks because of how much I try and put into it. So the question that I have, though, is not knowing if a decision is something that I should control, or if I should assume that the AI is going to know more than me. So get off your horse, Corey. You don't know what that decision, you don't know if you should be making that decision. How do you make, so like, how do I make that kind of
How do you
determination?
make a decision about decisions, right? Yeah, again, you could take that all the way down to making decisions about each line of code, which is what software developers like me used to do, every day. And that's what coding with AI helps us with, is that now we can let the AI make some decisions. All I can say is that you're going to learn as you go which decisions you need to make and which decisions you need to turn over to AI, or you can turn over to AI. But I'm going to show you in a few minutes. I've got 2 more steps. Let me start this next step, and then I'll keep talking about what you just asked, because it's a very important question. Now, we just added. Now let's assume that we've gone through and we've added several decisions. Okay. Now our list of decisions could be out of order, right? For instance, we just added some decisions about scaling users, adding users. Some of those could be more important than the original ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the AI to review them and rearrange them. And again, this will. Now, this is a key step, because you want to make sure that you're making decisions in the right order. Okay. If you make a decision, if your first decision really depends on your 10th decision, then you could be in trouble. So you're using the AI to help. Again, as you learn and as you do more of this, you'll be able to order them yourself, but you can trust the AI for some of this. Okay, yeah, go ahead. By the way, you see me telling Claude to just go ahead and do it all itself. I typically don't do that, but that's because I like to stay more in control. But you can decide how to do that. Now go back to your question, Corey. There are 2 things that's important about your question. One is you don't know what you don't know, right? As Vicki knows, I talk to people all the time. I do free consultations for people, and believe it or not, I have heard this phrase from about 5 different people over the last 3 weeks. They say, but I don't know what I don't know. So what we're doing here is we're actually getting the AI to surface, right? To surface those things that we don't know. I didn't know anything about that. And in a few minutes, we're going to get the AI to give us more detail about that decision, probably more detail than we need to know, but you're at least going to know this is the decision that's being made. Because later on, there may be something else that comes up, and you don't know why, why is that not working? Why is it so difficult to add this new feature? And it's because of a decision that you made at the beginning of the project. And the decision records give us the ability to go back and say, why did we make that decision in the first place? And so it helps you as part of your project. Hey, Brandon.
Hey, so quick question. When you're talking to the Claude code or when you're interacting with it, do you find yourself, given your software background, talking to it more like a colleague, more like a computer system, or kind of a hybrid?
I probably talk to it more like a junior engineer, to be honest, or junior developer in many cases.
Got it.
Yeah. In fact, it used to be my highest viewed, but my second highest viewed TikTok is about firing my junior developer, and it's because Claude Code did something that I didn't want it to do. I saw a couple of hands, Vicky. I don't know who's up.
Oh, sorry, I think it's Rick first.
Okay.
You're on mute, Rick. If you're, are you going? Or?
Oh, I just wanted to comment that it's brilliant because he's telling me that the more you know about the process itself, meaning the tools in the way of your end result. I've been vibe coding because I certainly don't have any of Alan's knowledge. But I think the thing is, as you get more aware of your craftsmanship and the process to get to whatever art you're trying to produce, understanding those little things and asking it to be your co-pilot when you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. I ask it all the time, what do I not know that I need to know to get this done better? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a brilliant question always.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks. Corey, if you hold yours 1 second, I'm going to start this next prompt because it's a little bit longer and this is sort of gets to the meat of it. And then we'll take your question while Claude is working. Now, we now have 13 decisions. They've been rearranged in the order that, again, that Claude or whatever tool you use feels like it's the right order. I could change this if I wanted to, but the next thing is we want to make each decision, right? We want to make the decision, but we don't know what's the best way to do secrets management, okay? And I bet secrets management is something that you guys have heard from the beginning when you started doing vibe coding, right? Because that's the, everybody has their API keys out, open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's step through each ADR one by one. Now for each decision, this is where I told you before, there were two key terms, decisions and options, okay? This is where the options come in. For each decision, explain the decision to me and why it's important. So now you're learning more about what you don't know, right? Then give me options. For each option, explain the option briefly. And list the strengths, weaknesses, and trade-offs. After providing the options, tell me your recommendation and explain why you chose that option. Then give me the best argument, check this, against that recommendation. And then finally, perhaps one of the most important, tell me what assumptions you are basing the options and recommendations on. All right. So now we're getting to the meat of it. Okay. All right, Corey, you want to ask your question?
I was just going to ask. So I know that if you don't pay for Claude Code, you get this much of it. I do pay for ChatGPT, which means I get Codex. Could I do the same thing using Codex then?
I'm almost positive you could do the same thing with Codex, right? Yeah. There should be no problem with using Codex. Any other questions while we're waiting for Claude?
I do have one. Sorry, I jumped in ahead of slide. Mike, I think it's a quick question. Do any of your decisions as you're going through, like, say you get to like document number 5, ADR number 5, can it change something that has already been decided before, like that far down the line, or is it always going to stay in that order kind of thing?
So the way I do it is that I keep them in order. So if I'm doing ADR 5, it would only change the decision record for 5. If I make a decision in 5 that contradicts one of the earlier ones, then what I usually do is start over, because you don't want a contradiction in your architecture, which is what we're doing, is building an architecture. And what happens then is, by the way, the other thing that happens is, as you're going through these options, you're going to find new decisions that you need to make. Okay, so you don't be afraid to add new decision records.
Thank you.
Sonia?
Yeah. I was just going to say, I love thinking of this as, I love thinking of decisions and AI as a junior engineer. It just simplified my life a whole lot, because I kept thinking of all these prompts and I kept setting myself back. So thank you for that. That analogy just went. Thank you.
Good. So let's, we have another hand. Oh, hi, it's Noemi.
Hi, Alan. So one of my questions was, so decision scope. So one of the things that I found when I was making decisions, when I was developing, is if I make a change in one area and that particular area also connects to another area in my development, that decision that I'm making within the scope of that decision needs to also impact the related areas. So in my development, I had to say, this decision is going to impact the following modules. Please keep that in mind as you move forward. So I don't know if anyone has to like factor that in, but I was thinking about decision scope, and that's one of the things that I think we may have even talked about it at one point.
Right. And one thing that, I mean, I have to pick how much detail to go into, but one thing that I do often is that I number my decisions so that they are related. So I may not start with a 1 or do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I may do 100, 200, 300, 400. And then if I have related ones, they may become 101, 102, 103, so that I can tell that they're related. And I know that there's some interaction there.
Yeah,
Corey?
that's good.
So Noemi, not having written it out separately, but if I have an element and I'm trying to change it, like the breathing bubble stuff that I was working on for so long, that you know about, I did some more yesterday, and I realized that it was going to impact something in the menu here, that if I didn't say to Lovable, hey, you got to fix that too. If we're fixing this, you got to make certain it tags in. I was also able then just to say anything else that relates to this throughout the rest of the app, you need to modify.
Right.
So
even
was my
even
way
just
of,
navigation was another one that I kept coming across, that problem where I had to rename something because it was a little confusing. And of course, the navigation is, part 2 of that, right? So every decision might come with like some attached decisions, and I just wanted to highlight that.
Exactly. So let's look what Claude gave us here when we asked for options. So notice here is here's option A. So it says that we could use a .env.example with a get ignore. It tells us the strengths and weaknesses and trade-offs. Here's option B, a secrets manager. So like using Doppler or in physical or one pass. Here's option, is that the only option? It gave us the 2 options. It recommended option A. You can see why it recommended option A. Notice here's the argument against. Now, I realize that this is slower than just letting the AI do it, but I may come and look at this argument against and say, wait, that's my case. It didn't know something about this. Or I look at the assumptions and I say, my team is small. Well, no, my team is actually 10 developers. So that's wrong. So I may want to come back and say something like, wait, if I have 10 developers, how would that change your options and recommendations? So you don't want to just breeze through this. You want to read through it, look at the options that's there, and then you make the decisions. Often I find something, I'll say something like, I like option A and option B. How can we combine those? So don't be afraid to push against what the AI is doing here, and you stay in control there. Let's see. What I would do at this point, and I'm not going to do it here just because we don't want to take that time, but what I would do at this point is I would say, okay, I want to choose option A, update the ADR, and let's go to the next option, next decision. And then we would step through it. Okay. So any questions before we move on? This is the end of the demo though. So if you have any questions about it, ask now. Hi, Corey.
Can you come to my house? That's my question.
Now, what I would do at this point is I would tell the AI, okay, that I'm ready to deploy, and here are the decision records. I would point it to the decision records, and I would ask it to give me a plan for deployment based on these decisions. Now, you see what's happening. If I just told the AI, let's deploy, it would give me a plan to deploy, but it would make all those decisions instead of letting me be in charge of the decisions. Hey, Rick.
Maybe I can explain it like a 5-year-old. It's my favorite thing to do.
Sure.
You just made a roadmap before you start driving anywhere. It's an old-fashioned triptych that you pick up at AAA, right? And
Right.
so next we're going to go into the tool itself. Now, it could drive itself. So you have a self-driving car called Lovable. You just talk to it, it makes it. That's what I've been doing, right? That's vibe coding at the root level. But you're actually being in control of the end result. So you're going to create a much more powerful thing. I've always been worried the heck out about security. Am I exposing something I don't even know that I don't know? So you just already in 5 minutes, you've given me 20 questions that I never had before. So thank God you're the human in the loop here. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's oh, we got another one. Sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Just one question. So thinking about what Rick just said and thinking about your role as a software developer with, decades worth of experience before AI and decades with experience with various aspects of AI, do you think, in your opinion, does AI create more software development opportunity? Does it lower the barrier, or does it evaporate the junior developer role? And if so, how does anybody become a senior developer with the skill set that you have if AI is taking all of the junior roles?
Yeah, I can tell you that as a C-level executive, I do not see AI taking the junior level role. I see it changing roles. The junior level role needs to be someone who understands how to use AI. You could almost say that what I'm teaching you right now is getting someone up from an entry level AI builder role to a junior level AI builder role. So that's the way I see it.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep.
I just have one more question about the deployment part. So now that all of the decisions have been laid out for you, but no decisions have yet been made, and you're ready to say, I'm ready to deploy, you haven't yet said, well, these are the decisions that together you and I have made. So where does that part come in before you say, I'm now ready to deploy?
Okay, I mentioned that, but maybe I went too quickly. So what I would say then is once I make a decision, I would tell the AI to update that ADR record. Okay. And then once all the ADR records are updated, and I say ADR, it could be any kind of decision record. It could be even one document. It doesn't have to be multiple documents. But once all the decision records are updated, then instead of just telling the AI, let's deploy this, you would say, I'm ready to deploy my application. Here are the decisions that we've made, and you give it a link to those decision records. So then it would follow the decisions, okay, to do the deployment plan. And usually when I'm doing this, I will say something like, while you're putting together the deployment plan, if you come across other decisions that need to be made that we've skipped, then stop and let's go through those decisions as well. Uncovering those decisions is much more important than doing something really quickly and getting it done. To go back to Brandon's theme for this month, the signal is more important than the speed at that point. Okay, let's keep going. So now I just threw this slide up here is just think about what would happen if you use this same methodology from the very beginning Okay. When you're first planning your app, if you use this decision records, then all it does is it makes each step a little bit easier. And when you get to the deployment stage, when you're ready to deploy, you already know what decisions have been made. Okay. Hi, Corey.
Hi, so the way that my building seems to have been working over the time that I've been doing these is I start out thinking I'm making this, but then I take a right turn and then I've made this. But I didn't know that I wanted to include that, and that until I started building it and went, oh, that would be really cool, or that's an interesting, but that didn't start off with me knowing that. So if I start with that basic architecture and the basic decisions that we make, and then this, I have another idea. Oh, let's put this video in here. Let's add this breathing thingy, whatever I'm talking about. Where and how do I then go and modify and get new decisions made? Because I'm assuming that I should be incorporating that then.
Well, you could. So it depends on what what kind of changes you're talking about. So it sounds like you may be talking about features, like you're adding features. And you notice we didn't talk about features much here at all. This was more about architecture. Right? This is more about building the infrastructure that's going to run your app in production. So features, what you're talking about is something that we call scope creep. That means that you start with something and then later, even as you're building, you think of more things to build. The way that I would suggest you think about this is at the very beginning. And if you look at my slide here, I would say this is at the idea and really at the idea phase. You need to have something called an MVP, the minimum viable product. Okay. Yeah. And you build the MVP before you start adding features. So then you have something called a backlog. So you start adding features to your backlog. But here's what my methodology does for you though. When you're ready to add those features, you know what decisions have been made in the past. You know what you decided about your architecture. You know what you decided about your database. You know what you decided about your security. You know all these things. So you know how to add that feature. And the AI knows because you can point it back to those same decisions when you're ready to add additional features. And all I'm telling you is the same methodology that we use when we're hand coding. And Sonia is an engineer. She can tell you that I'm really not telling you anything new. I'm just telling you how to use what we've always done with AI. Yeah. So again, think about how you could use this methodology all the way, from the beginning. Again, I'm going to skip to the end. So this is some information about me. I am announcing my third book that's called AI Builders, Making the Decisions That Turn AI Code into Real Software. And in that book, it is available on Amazon. In that book, I step through each of the phases that I showed earlier and show how to use AI to carry out that phase. Talks about decisions and options and things like that. I have a new platform called planningroom.tech, and it's based on making decisions about and with AI, and it does include a lot of information related to vibe coding, and you can see my TikTok there as well. I will show you two things. These are available free on Planning Room. Let me slide this over. My dog is ready for us to be finished. But in Planning Room Toolkits, you search for AI Builders, you'll see two companion documents that are completely free. One is architecture specification. So I show you what type of architecture specification I build as an example. And then there's a sample decision record, not as detailed as the one that I showed you here, but it does show. Thank you, Vicki. I was about to answer that. At Alan on AI. Yes. I'll pull this back up. I just wanted to show this real quick. Okay, so let's take a few more minutes. Any final questions?
I just wanted to give a shout out for the website, which is where Alan publishes his blog post articles, whatever they are, which is an awesome series. So check that out for sure.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. AlanKnox.com. I have a, it's called Engineering for Vibe Coder series. I post 3 articles a week on there on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Each one is some tips on Vibe coders about how to dig into software engineering, even if you don't know software engineering. So, and there is a pillar article there. Thanks, Noemi. There is a pillar article there that lists all of the articles. I think I'm close to 30 articles now in that series. And also from the website, you can sign up for my newsletter that comes out once a week, and it tells you, you know, what the articles were that week and gives you some other tips and ideas.
I think if you were to put all Alan's articles in a notebook LM, you might have like some insight into Alan's brain. Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, Alan. This is really like having you come back for a part 2, so you can show us an end product. But you know, we're always willing to have you back. And I think, you know, like I said, a wealth of information on TikTok and your website, and I'm really interested to dig into the planning room as well. So,
and
yeah.
I know at least Noemi and Vicky can tell you, like I said, I do free consultations. So, you know, again, you can sign up on my website or through the planning room, and 30-minute consultations. You can ask me any questions you want. And yeah, so feel free to, you know, if you want more, hit me up. I've got a few, I know it's top of the hour, but I've got a few minutes if anyone has any more questions.
You don't want to keep your dog crossing its legs.
She's fine. She doesn't need to go out. She wants to play.
Okay.
Corey, yes.
Would that include also helping with things like HIPAA, FIPA, that sort of security-based things, if you have an app that you're working on that has some privacy issues, and so you're not deploying it because you don't know how to deal with that stuff yet? If it's medical,
I could give you some tips on that, but really to answer those deep questions, I'd have to dig into your code, and it would be difficult to do that. But I can give you some tips on that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hey, Rick.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Alan, this was spectacular. It really answered a lot of questions that I didn't know I had already, right? But my ask maybe might be this. I'd be willing to donate all of my design skills to put on top of all your coding skills, and maybe there's some big project we can work on, like Hello USA or some product like Brandon and I did and won an award for that. I think it's a combination of the left and right brain, or whatever you want to call your brain and mine. And I'd be willing to buy you all a bunch of steaks and beers and whatever and have a good time, or vegan food, whatever you like. Because I think that there's potential that we join together and be the human in the loop and exchanging exactly what this is, which is a synergy of different thinkers, divergent thinkers, coming together maybe to solve some of the world's biggest problems. So I'm in if anybody else wants to do this as a workshop, but we actually pick a moonshot, something that we can achieve together that we can't do apart, just to offer. And I'm going to do that anytime.
It sounds really interesting. Rick, I do this for a living, so I don't have a lot of time to,
Or maybe somebody like you, Brandon, I think could, you know, and I have been working on these kind of moonshots and things like that. So.
And you can all use your 30 minutes with Alan to to ask your questions.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Alan.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you everyone for attending. And I'm sure you got as much out of it as I did, if not, you know, more. We do have another Learn Out Loud coming up in 2 weeks with Glenn, our Lord Digital Gods, and hope to see everyone back there. Yeah, we did just start 10 minutes ago. Corey, it seems like
because I talk so fast.
No, it was awesome. Oh, and we will have the recording up in the salon as well. So
great.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you having me, Vicky.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.